Good evening. I hereby call this August the 14th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. While the council members who are here are tuning in electronically to our meetings, I just want to pause and just say thank you to everyone who elected to attend this meeting, those who are here presently and those who will be tuning in. I always like to let you know exactly who's in the room, so I'm appreciative of all of our city staff. I want to call just a few by name. Here from our city manager's office, we have all of our, pretty much, assistant city managers, Mr. Rao, Mr. Turner, Mr. Page, led by our city manager, Mr. Lee Garrity. Representing the city attorney's office is Mr. Al Andrews. Our city attorney is absent, Attorney Carmen. So, Mr. Andrews, we thank you for filling in her stead. And also our public safety attorney, Ms. Lori Sykes. Our public safety personnel, we're joined by our fire chief, Chief Mayo. I don't see our chief of police, Chief Roundtree. He is here, but we have a number of our assistant chiefs, so we thank you for being here. And we have our Director of Emergency Management, Mr. Mel Sadler. I said a mouthful. Thank you all for being here. Councilmember Burke.
Did you mention, since you called the names, Ms. Caruth, head of our human...
The head of Human Resources, Carmen Caruth. Thank you for being here as well. I always say the only problem when you start calling names, you're going to forget somebody. So if I didn't call your name, please charge it to my mind and not to my heart. We have a consent agenda, and items on the consent agenda are unanimously approved with one sweeping motion unless a member wishes to be pulled for consideration. There are 3 items on the general agenda. There's an item recognizing Fire Engineer John Powell. We have an item considering a Homeland Security grant for the program to prepare communities for complex coordinated terrorist attacks. Another mouthful. And then there's an item considering a resolution amending our personnel resolution to implement a military pay incentive for eligible sworn police and certified fire personnel. Members of the committee, we should all be joined by now. Are there any items that should be pulled from the consent agenda for consideration? Councilmember Adams.
Yes, C2.
We'll pull item C2. If there is nothing further, I'd entertain a motion electronically.
So moved. Somebody already hit it.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Larson, seconded by Councilmember Burke. All in favor, please vote now on your keypads. All right, I'm having a little technical difficulties here, but that appears to be unanimous. So the consent agenda is approved, absent from item C2. And we'll read that now, please. All right.
Item C2, ordinance amending section 42-97 of the City Code relating to weight limitations on through traffic on certain city streets located in the Northwest Ward, Polo Road.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams, Mr. Turner is here if you want a presentation, but I'll yield the floor to you at this time.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. All I have is a question. What constitutes a neighborhood or a street being able to do this?
Mr. Turner.
Under the city ordinance, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the city would have to have an alternative route that's better for the trucks to use, and a through truck prohibition does not prevent someone who's driving a registered truck over the dimensions to utilize the road if they have a destination inside the zone. So, for instance, if you're having furniture delivered or if you're moving a house, then those vehicles would still be allowed to come into the zone in order to serve that need. But it would prevent through vehicles, say beer trucks or tractor trailer trucks or heavy vehicles that are over 13,000 pounds registered gross vehicle weight from going all the way through the zone that's restricted by council.
So this is, again, it's coming from the citizens, I guess, that live on Polo between this area. Again, so I guess, how do we determine that this is true? I mean, do we go out and we sit and monitor it, or we put those sensor things across the road, or what?
There's a traffic study that's conducted, and the evaluation looks at whether there is an alternative route and whether the alternative route is better suited to the use of trucks than the proposed road that the neighbors are asking for a restriction on. So in this case, Peace Haven and Robin Hood have been evaluated as better capable of handling the diverted traffic than allowing it to cut through Polo Road.
Throughout the city, do we have a lot of this? In the urban areas, neighborhoods?
We
inner
probably
city?
have a couple of dozen roadways that have truck prohibitions on them. Obviously, most of them are in residential neighborhoods. And there's probably one that comes to council every quarter, so 3 or 4 a year.
Could I please get those street names, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Adams. Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Councilmember Adams and I, we're having a difficult time in the northeast and the north with Patterson Avenue, and I've had this discussion before with the city manager as well as Mr. Turner. And they're just, if they're following the rules and what they're doing, you know, all those trucks are not supposed to be coming in that way, and I don't think we're doing a good job of monitoring it. That's the problem. They are taking over those neighborhoods. And I know if the folks out there are not allowing it to happen, we need to be given the same type of consideration and respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have all questions and comments been satisfied?
Yes.
That's, Councilmember McIntosh.
So this is in the Northwest Ward, and I was approached by citizens from Foxhall neighborhood and also people who lived directly on Polo Road. And this is, if you look at from the stretch from Peachtree/Peacehaven up to Robin Hood, it is, with the exception of a couple of very small offices, it is all single-family residential. And in conversations, we looked at why a truck would need to go down there when you have Peacehaven as an alternative, you have Robin Hood Road down to Siles Creek Parkway as an alternative. So the thought was that there, from an inconvenience standpoint, you would not be burdening commercial traffic in that area. And that is really sort of the line of demarcation. That intersection of Robin Hood and Peacehaven is one of the most intense commercial development areas in the city of Winston-Salem. So anything we can do to restrict sort of the intrusion onto that residential section, I feel like we should do.
All right, any further comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion electronically, please. All right, we've got a motion by Councilmember McIntosh. It's been seconded by Councilmember Burke. All in favor, please vote yes. And all opposers likewise. All right, that is unanimous. We'll move to the general agenda. We'll move to item G1, and giving us just, oh, please. Item G1, please.
Item G1, recognition of Fire Engineer John Powell.
Giving us a little bit of information about Fire Engineer John Powell. It's our Chief of Fire, Chief Mayor. It's our understanding that Mr. Powell is not able to be here today. I know he's a busy man. He's doing a lot of work for the greater good of the community, but we definitely want to make some space to recognize him and to hear words from our Chief. Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Mayor Pro Tem Burke, other members of the committee and council. As you noted, Fire Engineer Powell is MIA this afternoon, and knowing John like I do, I'm sure the reason he is not here is a good reason. So I stand firm on that and apologize on his behalf for his absence. I would, before I start, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is introduce Assistant Chief Harry Brown sitting nearest to me. He's the new former operations chief, new chief of logistics for the fire department. And then those backs holding down the back row back there, those are Battalion Chief Marlene Kosterka, if they would stand, and Battalion Chief, and tonight Acting Division Chief Sharice Moore, and Battalion Chief Joe Rams are joining us this evening.
Thank you for being here.
John, Fire Engineer John Powell, he's been in the fire service since 2003, but he's been with us in the career fire service for about 6.5 years. In addition to firefighter and EMT certifications, as all of our personnel and operations have, John is also a hazardous materials technician. He's also certified in trench rescue, rope rescue, vehicle and machinery rescue, and agricultural rescue. And in addition to that, he is certified as an instructor, and he's currently working on his 2-year degree. He's married to his wife, Angela, and they have 4 children. If you'll remember, Mr. Chairman, back in October of last year, Hurricane Matthew made landfall right along the North Carolina-South Carolina line. It was the 9th costliest hurricane in U.S. history. In North Carolina alone, 26 people died at one time. Nearly 700,000 were without power. The Tar River crested at 24.5 feet, which is about 5.5 feet above flood stage, and total loss of property in the state was about $1.5 billion. So, you know, that's a devastating storm for anybody, for anywhere. But, you know, when you consider, you know, parts of eastern North Carolina that are sparsely populated and short on resources, those types of storms can be particularly devastating. Following Hurricane Matthews, when it came through in the eastern part of the state of North Carolina, through the Emergency Management Division, they sent out a statewide call, and you may remember we sent several water rescue teams to the east. Chief Kosterka in the back, she and Assistant Chief Tad Byram, they went and staffed the EOC for about a week in Edgecombe County. And John is from Princeville in Edgecombe County. And John's twin brother is a police officer in Halifax, but he's also the fire chief in Princeville. Just as, you know, it was a la Floyd in 1999, that area was just devastated. Lying right along the Tar River as it does. So the Princeville Fire Department lost essentially everything they had: building, apparatus, turnout gear, breathing apparatus. I mean, everything was essentially lost. And John's brother, James, the fire chief there, nearly drowned trying to effect a water rescue and had to spend several days in the hospital to recover. So John asked if he could deploy and assume the role of fire chief for the town of Princeville. And we were fortunately able to get I should have taken a swig before I came up here. We were able to get a mission number assigned, and thank you. And John was he was sworn in as acting fire chief for about a month for the town of Princeville. When he got down to Princeville, which was a more challenging feat than you can imagine, because I remember going, my parents live out east of there, and I remember going down, and it was, you sort of had to go around your elbow to get to your thumb. But he was able to get a fire suppression task force assigned from Pamlico County. They were able to come up and assume fire suppression activities for the town of Princeville, so the members of the fire department could sort of get back on their feet and take care of their own families. Then after turning the reins back over to his brother, John returned to Winston-Salem, of course, but his efforts did not stop. He continued to work for his down east hometown, and by December had raised about $3,000 to ensure Princeville Fire Department members and their families had a nice Christmas. So in recognition of his effort in the response and recovery to Hurricane Matthew, John was named by the North Carolina State Firefighters Association as their Firefighter of the Year. And this is a first for me. It's not like everybody gets this award, but I've never worked for an agency to have an employee to receive this high recognition. So we certainly are proud of John, and I regret that he's not able to join us tonight to say a few words to you and show off his trophy.
Chief, I'll say thank you for that heartfelt presentation on Fire Engineer Powell's behalf. He certainly brings honor to his family. He brings honor to the illustrious Winston-Salem Fire Department. Yeah. But he also brings honor to the city of Winston-Salem. So I'd love to say it personally, but if you certainly pass my words along, we really appreciate what he's done, and it's truly a reflection of the good men and women of the fire department, your leadership, and his courage and bravery. So on behalf of the committee, we certainly appreciate it. Are there any other comments from any other committee or council members? Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I agree with those comments. We're grateful to have employees who will extend themselves and share love and appreciation for others. Thank you.
Mr. Larson.
I think
Councilman Larson.
Winston-Salem exhibits and presents itself well when sister cities call out for help. It's not the first time, but particularly accolades to your department going down and stepping in. A lot of people think, oh, insurance will handle it, or somebody else will step up, or you see it on the news and then you go on to something else the next day. But these people are left with huge, huge problems, and they require a great deal of support. And I'm proud of Winston-Salem's role in helping other cities in the state in time of need, and I suspect we would be helped in turn. Hopefully we won't need it. Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chief, and to all the fire department. We appreciate you all. Item G2, please.
Item G2, consideration of items authorizing the City of Winston-Salem to accept a fiscal year 2016 program to prepare communities for complex coordinated terrorist attacks, Homeland security grant.
Thank you. And giving us a presentation on this is Mr. Mills Sadler. And I can say, Mr. Sadler, the members of this committee are very excited about this particular grant. I've heard from a number of them, particularly Councilmember Adams, who's been very excited about what we're doing here today. So we'll just say thank you and pause for the presentation. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and members of the committee.
Good evening.
I'm excited too. You may recall we came in January to ask for authorization to apply for a grant that we found out about in January, or actually in December, for complex coordinated terrorist attack, training, planning, and exercise. Subsequent to your approval of that request, we were awarded a $1.8 million grant, and we are certainly appreciative of your assistance with that. Only was the City of Winston-Salem and Durham County in North Carolina were award winners. I don't know that any others applied. I'm not really sure what the application process, but those were the two winners in North Carolina. As you may recall, this grant eligible were cities, counties, tribal units, states, and federal units. And when you look at the list of award winners, there were a little bit of everybody. We did, however, get the largest municipal grant of all those award winners, so we're feeling very fortunate. Now that we've been given the grant, we've got to apply, ask you again, rather, to accept that grant. It is $1.8 million, or a little over $1.8 million. It will be used not only for the City of Winston-Salem, but in the entire region. We're going to spread out. I haven't talked to my counterpart in Durham County. I don't think we can quite reach that far with but we'll be doing some regional work, and so will they also in their own region. So we intend to spread the wealth around. We'll be working with emergency agencies as well as nonprofit agencies and some others who will be involved in our normal operations. There is no match required, which is a good thing. It is a 36-month performance period. It ends in July of 2020. So we've got a little time here, but we will be doing extensive planning. We'll be doing extensive training. And of course, this gives us a chance now, in speaking of training, that we'll be able to backfill some positions that you can't ordinarily do. We can't just take people off the front lines and send them to training, but we'll be able to do that, among other things, of course, because we'll be able to afford it now for replacements, as well as we'll be doing some extensive exercises. So we are looking forward to this, and we think it'll be a real boon to our local response effort.
Well, I can say foreign and domestic terrorism has been a huge topic of discussion as of late. We always pose the question to you, Mr. Sadler, are we ready?
Well, we'll be even more ready now.
1.8 million reasons why we're more ready.
We shouldn't be. Right. There shouldn't be any question about it now, I don't think.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. Sadler? Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I'm just going to make a comment. I always say after we hear reports about how safe our city is and how we're moving ahead, that's always been my question, are we ready? And I speak to the city manager on many occasions. I say, are we ready? Do we feel that we give to the citizens in this community a feeling of comfort? So I'll say it to you, Mr. Sadler, and I'll say it to the city manager, are we ready?
We're more ready than we've ever been, actually, right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
and I will shamelessly admit, you know, Councilmember Burke does not have a patent on that, but I did sort of poach it from her. I will keep using it going forward.
I'm
Councilmember
very
Adams.
proud of him, so anything he takes that I have, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Madam. Councilmember Adams.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Taylor, and members of the Public Safety Committee and public responders throughout the city and the county and the region. I was fortunate enough to be asked to, well, I wasn't asked, I volunteered to go to Emmitsburg back in 2014. I didn't know at the time that no other city or other elected officials in the county or other areas were not going. At that time, you can call me a prepper if you like, but that's the way my mind works. I look at things and I go, are we really prepared to be responsive to whatever happens in the world we live in today? I have no doubt that our staff and the people in the city and the county are ready to do their jobs. But I have to admit, and you can beat me up later, I don't think we're ready for the world as we know it now. I do not think the emergency responders and the city government of Charlottesville, and I'm praying for them, I'm sure all of us are. But there were some gaps. And you folks sitting out there in the audience that are public safety people, you saw those gaps too, just by watching what was going on the news all over the country. Those are the things that we think we're ready, but things can happen because the group, the team, hasn't come together collectively to understand what the process is, what's the protocol, who's going to do this, have we checked this, and check all the boxes, and everything is good to go. Over the past 2 going on 3 years after coming from Emmitsburg, many of you on this committee have heard my passion about being ready for a coordinated attack. Well, a coordinated attack is what we saw this weekend. It's not necessarily people from the outside. It's also being aware of what happened in Florida, Boston, and California, and all those other places, Colorado. Emmitsburg was an eye-opener for me. Those that were there with me, a lot of the people that are here, some of the people, they can attest to that. It actually made you feel that you were living through a coordinated attack here in our city. Your heart was sad. People were tearful because they were able to digitally create explosions at our hospital, tankers blowing up on our major throughways of 52 and 40, bombs going off at the fairground during the fair or Wake Forest's homecoming at BB&T, as well as Winston-Salem State or NASCAR, Winston Cup. At that point then, when I left there, I was more committed than ever to just beat it. As Ms. Burke would say, I was going to beat that horse because I knew we needed more help. And with Winston-Salem being the urban center for the 5th District and this part of the state, we're the urban center. It was very important that we be prepared to help our small towns who we say are weak targets, that they don't think that this could happen, but we need to help them become prepared. And that's what this is about. It's not just about Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. It's about Yadkin and Davison and all of these other little towns like Thomasville and Walnut Cove and places like that. In talking with staff, I want to thank Mr. Page and all of the others that helped make this happen, and Mr. Sadler. We had a lot of conversations about this, and I also want to give a shout out, to Leslie Mazingo, our legislative lobbyist who got with me and the staff and said, Council Member, I think I found that grant you've been looking for. It's going to take some time and some work, but I think we can get this one. Because we had been to Emmitsburg. Forsyth County, Winston-Salem was the first city and the only city that they did this trial prototype launch with. So we already had been through it. We knew what we needed. And the federal government said, okay, they definitely should be a part of this. We spent time when we would go to Washington for our visit during the National League of Cities with DHS and FEMA representatives and heads of departments, talking with them. And I played back, again, my feelings about Emmitsburg and how we needed to be a part of this. I think they got the message, at least that's what Leslie and Evan and Lee and those that went, they got the message that we really wanted to participate in this process. Later, there were more conference calls with Winston-Salem staff and myself and others. And then there were conversations with our elected congressional officials. I want to thank Representative Fox, Senators Tillis, and Senator Burr for their help, because this couldn't have been done without them. They were the stamp that really made it happen. Again, I'm looking forward to the process, to making sure that we involve all the necessary parties. As you see, it's not just government, it's private, nonprofit sectors, faith-based organizations in all levels of government and community people that will have to, if not already, work together in case there is a coordinated attack on our community or somewhere in the west region of North Carolina. I just want to say, Mr. Sadler and Mr. Page, I'm looking forward to it, and I would definitely like to be a part of any preparations as we go forward, because as you know, most of you, yes, I am going to ask the questions that sometimes we just might forget to ask, or question the process itself, to make sure that when we are finished, the United States government of FEMA and DHS know that Winston-Salem, North Carolina, step to the charge for the western part of North Carolina. Durham has the east, we have the west, and that we're ready and prepared to come to the needs of the citizens in this area. Thank you. I know it sounds like a speech.
Councilman Larson.
I just want to say congratulations. Congratulations to the staff. Congratulations to my Councilmember Adams. I think I'd been on board maybe 4 weeks, and we had a meeting, a telephone conference which Mr. Sadler sat in, and the mayor did, and I think Alan Lee as well. And I didn't know what was going on, but I remember Dee Dee taking charge in that meeting and talking to the federal officials who were on a massive party line. There must have been 8 of those federal bureaucrats involved in the discussion. And Dee Dee clearly articulated why Winston-Salem was worthy and capable of implementing and executing on it. And a large part of that was a tribute to the staff that we have in the city that's capable of executing this charge. The leadership role that Winston-Salem will play in this $1.8 million program will prepare so many people, yes, and will put us in so much better shape. It's unfathomable. And the idea, whoever created this idea and whoever wrote the grants and whoever followed through on it, which I had nothing to do with, congratulations on that, because it is a huge, huge achievement for the security of our citizens, as well as glory to the city itself. And I want to congratulate you on that.
Councilmember McIntosh.
I want to add my thanks for all the hard work that was put in by staff and Councilmember Adams. I know this has been a long slog. I remember when I had just joined council and could not make the trip up to Emmitsburg, and I feel like I missed out on a really educational time up there. But I want to say thank you for all the work, all the follow-through, because it's easy to kind of start out in it, but to stick with it and make it happen is a whole different thing. And during the Iraqi invasion, we learned a couple new terms. There were known unknowns and unknown unknowns. And I think going through this process helps us identify to get prepared for some of the known unknowns, and to be robust and build a robust response team that can deal with the unknown unknowns. Because every time a new terrorist methodology comes out, you learn from it. But being prepared and being able to react to that swiftly, I think, is important. And that's what I'm looking for out of this, and I think that's what we'll get. So thank you.
Thank you to everyone who spoke. I'll sort of close by saying, out of the thousands of cities and counties in America, we were one of 29 that received this grant, and only 2 in the state of North Carolina. I think that speaks to the seriousness that we have in this city about fighting terrorism, the leadership of this city, starting with the manager's office, going to Mr. Sadler and his departments, everyone who wrote the grants, everybody who helped make this happen. We appreciate what you're doing for our city, and I'm very proud of what we're doing here today. Members of the committee, I believe that we have a need to approve the resolution to accept the grant money. With that being said, I entertain a motion electronically, please. That's been motioned by Councilmember Larson, seconded by Councilmember Burke. All in favor, please vote in the affirmative. Those who are opposed, you have the opportunity to do likewise. That is unanimous. Thank you. Item G3, please. Thank you, Mr. Saller, again.
Thank you.
Item G3, consideration of a resolution amending Article 2 of the City of Winston-Salem Personnel Resolution to implement military incentive pay for eligible sworn police and certified fire personnel.
Thank you. This is another item I think we're all pretty excited about, and hopefully we don't spend too long on it because I think it's a no-brainer. We support the efforts of our police officers and our firefighters, especially those who have served the military service, and we want to make sure that we thank them with the military incentive. I think that was approved unanimously when we voted on the budget. Here we were supposed to sort of carve out the meat and potatoes and make sure we're moving in the right direction. Giving us the report is the Director of Human Resources, Ms. Carmen Carruth. You have the floor, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and Council Members McIntosh, Larson, and Adams. The item that you have before you is just that. It's an implementation plan for the military incentive that you approved during the budget process. We're really excited about this. It's very important to us because what we found is that that the skill set that folks get when they're in the military, skill set and experience, really positions them to do sworn and certified public safety work. And we've had difficulty recruiting ex-military, and this really positions us to be able to more effectively do that, especially since a lot of our competitors, all of our competitors, do not offer this incentive. So as I hear Mr. Garrity say a lot, public safety pay is kind of like an arms race. We're in front and then they move in front. Well, this puts us closer to the front again, and so as folks who recruit for these positions, we're really appreciative of this. The resolution that you have does really three things. The first thing it does is it actually puts this into the personnel resolution. So it spells out what the conditions are of this, which basically is the military incentive is available to any sworn police or certified fire employee with a minimum of 1 year of experience in the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, reserves for either of those, and the National Guard. So that's the first thing it does. The second thing is the resolution authorizes us to increase the pay of eligible existing employees, sworn police, certified fire, who meet the eligibility requirements. There are about 150 of them, and they will receive a 5% increase to base pay. The third thing it does is it changes our police and fire pay plans so that the military incentive is a part of the pay plan. So I've included in your packet the new pay plans, and basically what you will see is this just sits right on top of the other incentives. So if say a police officer or a firefighter has a bachelor's degree, they will automatically get a 10% increase over base. If on top of that they have military experience, they'll get 5% more. So for a total of 15%. So as new police and fire come on board who are eligible for this incentive, they'll be able, it's actually spelled out. So that's it. If you've got questions, I'll be glad to answer those. We can do this within the money year.
Great. So I have no doubt that this helps us to continue to attract the brightest and best, and I think that's something that's very important to us. I have no concern with what I see here, Director Carruth. I think the question came up So we're providing a military incentive for veterans, right? But the question came up, what happens to those who are still currently in the military?
We provide, the military incentive will not just be for veterans. It will be for even those who are still active, because what we value is the experience and the training, whether they're still getting that experience and training or not. It's
Great.
both.
We just want to make sure that's accurately reflected in the minutes, because that is a question that came up from those who are concerned. I will take questions from council members at this time. Councilmember Larson.
I'm not really clear that that's articulated because it talks about discharged in the way it's written.
It does mention that, and we probably
on
did.
the issue of honorable discharge. So we need some clarity in that language if we're going to be inclusive.
We'll clarify that.
May I make?
Mr. Larson,
I
please,
got
you have the
to
floor.
just make some comments. We are challenged with manning our first responders. And the idea, then, we have to think out of the box. And this discussion, and I applaud the work of this committee, our chairman particularly, who ran point on this, to come up with some new ideas. And not only new ideas for recruiting, which is critical, but also retention, which is equally valuable. And this is a new plan, and there is some expense involved, but we know that right now, with vacant positions we have, that there's no additional cost to the taxpayers to do this. And I think it's a very creative solution, and I applaud the council for coming up and voting for this, and I'm anxious to see it implemented as quickly as possible.
Councilmember McIntosh. We'll go with Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and then we'll come to Councilmember Adams.
So the number of people that this will affect immediately is what, you said, about 150? And that, when we talked at council about the dollars going toward this, that included, in that calculation was also the reserves?
Yes.
Okay, so that does not change the number. There's no delta there. Okay. What is the level of concern about compression, about this causing us to have to come back and recalculate salaries and officers above people who are managing the people that we're giving raises to?
We're always concerned about compression, and it's very difficult. Every time we make a change, we get compression. To some degree, we just have to live with compression to continue to move forward. We're just, to some extent, we'll have to live with compression, some compression.
Mr. Garrity.
Yeah, I would add, in this case, I look at it the same way I look at the education incentive. Police and firefighters are eligible for 5% with a 2-year degree and 10% for a 4-year degree. All three of these things create compression, but to me, it's based on skill sets. So it's not compression. To me, the reason that officer is making more, or that firefighter is making more than another firefighter who came the same time is because they bring those additional skill sets.
Okay. Do we anticipate requests from non-sworn personnel for a similar match or a similar bump if they've served in the military?
I have not heard others say that. I know that I've heard some council members ask the question of what it would cost if we were to decide to do that. So we've made a calculation. About 10% of our employees have military experience, so it would cost around $430,000 if we wanted to extend it to other employees.
Okay. I did want to thank Chief Bricker for being so eloquent at our meeting, at our budget meeting, for standing up and really making the case very plain and very sort of understandable to people and very kind of visceral. So thank you for your leadership on that. I really appreciate it.
Hear, hear. Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Thank you. All jobs are important. But we know when we talk about fire and police, these are some of the most serious jobs. And with the world like it is today, and especially America, and even so close, a place like Charlottesville, where I attended there, such a calm place when I went there. When I looked at what took place on television this week, it was just terrible. It's a shame how people disrespect our police. And for people to want to be police, then we need to be glad. And for us to say to give them the kind of salaries that we know they deserve, we should be happy about that. And as a senior citizen, I have said this when I was a younger woman. I love Winston-Salem. Y'all know this is my city. And because I love it. And it can be yours too if you love it like I do and participate and give of your service. When I'm walking into the neighborhoods, areas that I represent, I don't have any problems with feeling afraid. When I go to bed at night, I don't have any problems because I feel that we're in good hands. And I just pray and hope the things that people see will not keep some people who want to be a police not to be a police. So I say thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the city manager and hearing what we're talking about and then bring us something. So may God continue to bless this city and the men and women in the blue and the white.
All right. Councilmember Adams.
Yes. I too, the question Councilmember Burke asked about what happens if other employees come forward. I think we need to, again, keep that one just next back here on the back burner. Because just like the salary disparity study, even before that, when police and fire came to us, and then our utilities came, and then our sanitation came, you better know they're coming. So I think we need to be prepared to deal with that. I would like some data on the new recruits versus departures for other employment. Now that when we draw this line in the sand and start to pay these salaries, I'd like to hear a report, Mr. Garrity, of how effective this is. I mean, granted, I was one of the ones that said if we do it for one, we got to do it for all. But I'm okay with us doing it. But I also know as elected officials, I'm passionate. We get caught up in the passion. We want to do the right thing. But sometimes we forgot to look in our pocketbooks to see if we can sustain that passion. The vacant positions that we talked about during the budget session, and we were given the number that we were vacant and the amount of money that it equated to. Is that money being used to help sustain this?
No,
This?
The money for
Okay.
this is the money that you approved in the budget
Okay.
for this
so,
specifically.
Thank you. So how do we bridge the gap if we hire up for the vacancies? Have we looked at the scenarios of if the vacancies come in and 50% of them are military for fire and police? These are the projections I want to see of different scenarios of what that will mean to the city and the taxpayers of the city. Again, this is not minimizing the importance. You just heard my long speech. I love it. But the point is we got to be thinking physically sound on when we're making these decisions. And I would like to see going forward, as I said, projections of 2 to 3, 5 years out, what this is going to look like so we can start to look at our tax for our citizens. What are we looking at? You know, unless we all start getting out here trying to bring some business to build something and we can collect some money, we all part of the A-team. So it's not just the city council and staff that have to look for businesses and development and revitalization. We all now need to get on the train with that in order for us to keep adding benefits, salaries, health care, 401s, other things. We got to shore it up with tax dollars that people pay taxes with, and it's not necessarily the people that are living in the residential areas. We need commercial and businesses to come into the city. So again, I thank you and the staff. I thank our police and fire personnel for what they do every day for us. And again, I hope and I pray that we can get a jump start over the other municipalities in doing this, and I'll be interested to see the data as we move forward.
Thank you, members of the council. Thank you, Director Caruth. As not to belabor the hour, we certainly want to get a motion on the floor because we do want to recognize Fire Engineer Powell. I entertain a motion at this particular time if there's nothing further. It's been motioned by Councilmember Larson, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Burke. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all in favor, please vote yes. Opposers, likewise, no. That is unanimous. Thank you to all our police and fire for what you do to help our city to be a better place to live, work, and relax. And thank you, Director Caruth. That concludes both our consent and our general agenda. There's a gentleman who we spoke so highly of, who is absent when we spoke highly of him. But we thank you for being here, Fire Engineer Powell. Chief spoke so eloquently about you, but we wanted to make sure. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, you looking at him.
I'm gonna be truthful. I saw you come in with the trophy. I thought you went out and put your coat on and came back out, but he has a twin brother who is also a fire chief somewhere else.
That's correct.
So, Chief Mayo will give you the floor again. I've been tricked, and I admit it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We were fortunate he made it before you all adjourned this afternoon. You heard enough from me a while ago, man. You should have heard the stuff I said about it.
It was all great.
It was good.
It'll be on TV
Make
tomorrow
the
morning.
check out.
I'm going to turn it over to John and let him say a few words to you and introduce his family to you, if that's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
It'd be an honor. Mr. Powell, you have the floor, sir.
Before Mr. Powell comes in.
And Mr. Powell, before you come up, there's been a request to say a couple of words, and we want to recognize our Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Yes, but what I was going to say, the reason it was so confusing, when this Mr. Powell came in, he looked just like the one on TV 13 when he was being recognized, had his suit and everything. So that's easy
Right.
for you to think.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Powell.
I want to say thank everybody in this room. You've tendered your resources to the fire department that was truly in need. Also, this is a testament to the esteemed individuals that make up our fire department. So I would not have been as successful as I have without the leadership and the support that the brothers and sisters in the Winston-Salem Fire Department gave me. So it's truly an honor to receive this. I am thankful that I was able to represent the goals and values of the city of Winston-Salem. And there's a lot of people who have made a difference. And I represented the organization, and I truly tried to bring honor and glory to what we stand for. So thank you all, and God bless everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, please introduce your family, sir.
All right. Ooh. Leave it to me to tear it up. All right. This is my twin brother, Chief James Powell of the Princeville Fire Department. This is his wife, Bonnie Powell. All right. My wife, Angela Powell, my daughter, Angela. And last but not least, the most patient man in this room, Matthew Higgins. This was my dad's best friend. When my dad passed away in '92, he actually stepped in and helped raise my brother and I. So he's responsible for a lot of the character that I have. He took a snot-nosed kid from Princeville and made something out of him. So
All
truly
right.
thankful.
Thank you, sir.
And also his wife, which is also a mother of ours as well.
All right. Thank you for being here. And Mr. Powell, before you leave, I said this in your absence, and I want to say it in your presence. I believe in giving people their flowers when they're due, when you can hear it. I said that you truly bring honor to the city. You bring honor to this fire department, and you certainly bring honor to your family, and that's evident seeing them here, being with you today. So on behalf of the committee, we thank you for what you do, and we're happy to see your hard work. So congratulations again.
Yay.
Are they guests too?
Your children?
Oh, let the children stand.
These are my wonderful grandchildren, Danielle, Tanaja, and Zion.
Yay.
Members of the committee, council members, we've completed our agenda. If there is nothing further for the good of the order, we'll hereby consider this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to be adjourned. Thank you.